You're listening to the Valleys to Victory podcast with Jeremy Greening, helping you move from stuck to forward in life's hardest seasons. Here's something I think about all the time. You can know exactly what you're supposed to do and still not do it. Every one of us has that gap somewhere, the gap between what we know and then what we actually live out. So my guest today has spent the last 20 years standing right inside that gap. And he's done that in classrooms, in coaching conversations, and in watching people who had every piece of advice that they could possibly need and still couldn't move. So he's built an entire academy around one idea, and that is that information informs, action transforms. So today we're talking about what happens in the space between knowing something and becoming someone, and why so many of us get stuck exactly there. So let's get into it. I'm Jeremy Greening, and if you're new here, this show was never about interviewing successful people, but it's about interviewing people whose stories and whose wisdom can help you take your next step forward, whoever you are and whatever season you find yourself in. So my guest today is Ernest Tan, and Ernest is the founder of Leven Academy in Singapore. And he's spent 20 years in classrooms built around a conviction that I deeply respect. And I actually build my business around this thought as well. Education shouldn't just inform students, it should form them. So Ernest, welcome to the Valleys to Victory podcast.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for the wonderful introduction.
I'm really glad you're here, Ernest. And before we get into the deep stuff, and we're going to get there, but I want people listening to actually get to know you a bit first. So, Ernest, who are you outside of the titles, outside of the work that you do? Like, if I met you in a coffee shop and I had no idea who you were, who would I be talking to?
So I like to identify myself first and foremost as a father to three boys. And I think you can tell how rambunctious my house can actually be because all of them are running around, jumping around. And when they were much younger, they were called three monkeys. I'm also the husband to my wife, whom I absolutely adore, and I have no intention of separating my life from because I think she is the hurt to who I am. And that is something is a testimony to the fact that we grew up, or rather we were in a relationship knowing that we wanted to make it work. And we are making every single day work by just spending time and just understanding and just loving each other. So that's what I want to be identified with first and foremost, besides all of the titles out of work.
That's so good. What did you want to be when you were a kid? And did any of that stick later in life?
Wow, there were a couple of things that I wanted to be. When I was young, I wanted to be a police officer because I thought that was a pretty important job, looking after people, protecting the weak, and doing my best to serve the community. Now, is that something that I am right now? I think you can actually tell no, there's nowhere anywhere near the idea of being a police officer, although there are some parts of it which are still quite in line with what I thought of when I was young, which is helping the community, serving people. And I have been doing that both as a civil servant, and that's what we call in Singapore, teachers are civil servants. We look after the public interest in the specific niche of education. And now, as you've said, I run my own company and academy.
Wow, I love that. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit now because the reason I wanted you on the show isn't just about what you've built, although we'll hear about that inevitably as we go, but it's what
Yeah.
you've walked through to build it. So, what I'd love you to do now is take us back to one of the hardest seasons of your life and maybe explain to our viewers what was actually happening at that time.
Wow, this will definitely cut deep. And I guess the toughest part of my life took place when I was about the second year of my university. This was about the time of 2005, 2006. And mind you, this was when I kind of got together with my ex-girlfriend who became my wife. And the incident, or rather the event that took place, was the separation of my parents because both of them were unable to see eye to eye on a lot of things. And fundamentally, it also boiled down to finances. And that is also part of why I'm driving financial literacy as one of the three pillars of my business because I feel that having the knowledge of finances is going to help solve a fair bit of the pain that not just couples go through, but most importantly, how it affects the next generation. Because I was inevitably affected by the decision of separating between both my mom and my dad.
Mm.
And yes, even though right now, today, they are both definitely not together still, that was a very pivotal part of the life that shaped who I am because of the work that I had chosen to do, largely based on that event back then.
Yeah, wow. What did you believe about yourself or about God or about the world in the middle of all of that? What were some of the beliefs that you were carrying as you were going through that valley?
I gotta say that that valley was a big test, not just to myself as an identity, not for being a child of parents, but more importantly as a believer and follower of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I say this because I have dedicated myself to Him. But when that event happened, I began to question why was I allowed to go through such a pain?
Mm.
And that question lingered for a really long time. I remembered crying myself to sleep, wondering, God, if you do love me, and I know you do, why did you put me through this pain? And the pain was seriously unbearable. And of
Mm.
course, I did some things which I don't really want to remember, and I don't really feel that ought to be shared, but it's just that kind of pain that it was so frustrating.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a really, really rough season for you. Was there a moment in that valley where you weren't sure whether you'd come out the other side?
I must say, I wasn't sure whether I'm going to come out of it whole, and I was definitely broken because of that experience.
Mm.
But most importantly, the thing that anchored me to the fact that I was still going to follow him is because I knew that he is real. He became real to me a couple of years before this whole event. And through the constant daily bread that I was doing with him, having a conversation with him, and his answers to me were really audible. I mean, I'm one of those people that I could literally hear God speak. And I
Mm.
can give you a story that there was one time I was working and there was a microchip that actually was lost. And I was just praying in my heart, God, can you please show me where exactly this missing item was? And I could hear, look in the slipper. And I followed that instruction and I looked in the slipper and there it was, that microchip was there. So this was just one of the many instances where I could tell you that I could hear him. And his realness to me in my life anchored me past that painful event in my life.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much for trusting us with that, Ernest, because I know sharing deep personal things like that, it can bring stuff even back to the surface again now. So I just want to thank you for being so open and real with us. And I want to thank you for sharing. I want to move now and pivot just a little bit to the turning point from your, as
Mm,
you went through your valley. Was there a
yeah.
specific moment for you where things started to shift for you, or was it slower than that?
I would say it was very slow, and there was no pain being taken away. It's a bit like I can't remember whether it was it Paul or Peter, so I think I need a pastor to remind me of this. I think it might be Paul, whereby he had a thorn in his flesh and he prayed for it to go away. I think it's
Yeah.
Paul, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so it's Paul. So I think that thorn never left my flesh, and that stigma that I felt being someone who came from a broken family never left my system. And I was just constantly wondering how can I use this valley to make something good out of it.
Mm.
And at that point in time, I was already working part-time in the same kind of business that I am doing right now, but I was just employed back then because I needed some kind of finances to sustain myself to go to school, have some food, and come back. Nothing lavish at all. When I was working, that was a platform for me to really share in a raw fashion to the youth of that time. So they were high school for Australian terminology and secondary school for Singapore terminology. I was sharing with them my fears and how I was just so downtrodden. I didn't have any motivation. I lost all direction as to why was I studying for a degree, because my main motivation back then was to do it for my parents who had placed their entire hopes in me. And mind you, I am one of two boys that they have. I'm the older brother. But between my brother and I was the more academically inclined one. So I felt all the pressure to just give them what they want. But when that separation happened, I just lost every motivation. But yet, I used that platform that I was giving the workshops to help others in similar situations or to just share my pain, to be raw with them and get them to share their own fears, got them to share their own um, pain that they have and to be open about it. And from there, guided them to what could they possibly do in the next step. What is the next step that they could actually take in order to make their own life a bit better without laying blame to whoever it is that has hurt them. So I think that platform that I had was really a saving grace that God planted in my life way before this whole event happened.
Yeah, wow. No, that's amazing. And I shared with my, we'll go down the faith route just for a moment. My audience isn't just faith based, but we can learn
Yeah,
principles from faith teaching. And so um,
yeah,
Jesus said to his disciples, "Let go." This is when he first met them, Simon, Peter, and Andrew on the shoreline, and he said,
yeah.
"Drop your nets." And follow me, and I will make you a fisher of men, right? So,
Yes, yes,
what I
yes.
take from that is that they had to drop something in order to follow and take hold of the next
Mm,
season. So, what did you have to let go of in order to move forward? Because we all need to do that. We're all the reason we get stuck and we don't move forward is because we're clinging on to something. So, for you, in the midst of what you are in your valley, what did you have
yeah.
to drop in order to grab hold of the new and move forward?
I guess the one thing that I have learned to let go, and that was the lesson at that point in time, is the pride that I had. And I will tell you why I had that kind of pride. That pride was anchored with the identity I had in secondary school or high school. And that identity was I was a really capable individual. That capability came from some hard facts that I not only went beyond my parents' ability, but I also got into university. So that's pride number one. Pride number two was I was really capable in the sports that I did. I had seven concurrent extracurricular activities happening in high school at the same time. And when I went over to pass high school, which is what we call junior college,
Mm,
I had three concurrent, and they weren't light, so like co-curricular activities. They were things like swimming, water polo, and I was also a student leader. And that anchored my identity, and I felt really prideful that I was that capable. But when this event happened, I felt that I was told to let go of this earthly pride that I had and to trust that the pain is there for me to feel. I had to let go of the pride and utilize the pain that I feel, be raw to the students that I had the opportunity to speak to. And I was given the platform to assist, to help, to inspire with some of the lessons that I have learned. And those lessons were very raw. Those lessons were painful at times. But yet, if able to overcome them, and I am a pure human being, I am not rich. I don't come from a political family. I am as ordinary as you can get. But if there's one difference that I have, I'm willing to just stick through it. I'm willing to put one step forward and just keep moving ahead. So I think that was the one thing that I was told to let go of my pride.
yeah, no, that's so good. And can I just add to that? A raw lesson is the best lesson because you know what? It's a real person talking about real issues. No fluff and, oh, I've got it all together now and I'm perfect. No, I pride myself on leading, my wife and I lead our church, and we just wear our heart on our sleeve. We're very real to people and very raw, like what you said. But it's
Yeah.
amazing how much more what you're presenting is received when people can
Mm.
identify with you and go, "Hey, that person's real." So thank you so much for being real and raw today. And let's pivot now to the victory. I want to talk about what life looks like now, and even
Mm.
earlier as you got past that valley
Yeah.
compared to then. So let's do a bit of a comparison so that we can
Yeah.
talk about your victory.
So I think one of the things that I really celebrate today and the big difference between the value that I had was given and the victory that I made today is the fact that my family is really, really strong. And I counted on the fact that I have gone through that pain and I know the things that I need to avoid in learning from what the mistakes my parents have actually made and completely avoid all of them. So my parents, one of the key things that they didn't do, which I do, is to have open conversations with my wife. And this also means that she has the ability to criticize me and tell me things which I don't like. And when I did that, it opened up this whole ability for us to be extremely raw. Again, we're being raw to each other, But the most important thing is we understand from each other's perspective. And from there, we are able to create a relationship with each other that is very strong. And from that, it makes the family stable.
Yeah.
And I feel that the most important thing for parents to do is to create a stable environment. It doesn't mean that my wife and I do not disagree. We in fact disagree a fair bit. But when we disagree, we don't throw knives at each other, we don't shout at each other, we don't stare down at each other. We speak about it with emotions, but yet we are rational about it. And our children see that. And when they're living in such a stable environment, they can only feel safe to expose their own raw emotions, which granted gets a bit out of hand once in a while. But I think that is the victory that I have right now is that my family is very stable
Mm.
and my children do not have the kind of worry that I feel a number of the youth in Singapore are currently undergoing where the parents are not together, they're arguing. And I've seen this in my work. I've seen children whose parents are not very good relationally, and that has affected them.
Such a good learning from your valley. Can I ask a question this way? How has your
Sure.
valley and coming to your victory changed the way that you see other people who are struggling?
I think that goes back to the pride again. In the past, I'm always thinking, why do people have such results in their own lives? Could it be because they are just not capable enough? But right now, because of that, I don't see it as it is their problem. I see it as something they were probably not trained to do. They would didn't have the right kind of systems in place. They probably were not taught that. They didn't have the right starting point. And I think going for marriage counseling, which I'm not sure if your own church has it, because I personally went through marriage counseling
Mm.
before my wife and I were allowed to go through the matrimonial within our church back then. And that itself helped to create the platform for us to have such conversations,
Mm.
which was really important for us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is the part I care about the most because somebody listening right now to this podcast is in the middle of their own version of what you've just described to us today. And I want to give them something they can actually use. So I've really appreciated our discussion today. And I want to ask you this. If
Yeah.
someone's in a season just like the one you've just described, what's the
Mm.
first thing you would tell them to do?
I think first and foremost is to allow the emotions to just come out. You cannot contain that emotion. You have to let it out. You have to be raw with it. And if you're really angry, I don't think being angry is a sin. I don't think being angry is wrong. Anger is just an emotion.
Mm.
Of course, what you do with the anger could lead to troubles, but we need to learn how to let our emotions out. And once we allow that emotion to come out, then we can start doing some of the things that will be helpful. But let's talk about the emotions first. Some of the ways that I find helped me to allow my emotions to come out is I would just close my door, I would cry. That's one thing I did. And I'm very open about this being a man. I think men have this idea that no crying at all. But I don't see anything wrong with that. That's one. Number two, I allow myself to exercise and I put myself through this physical pain, but that physical pain is in a way beneficial to my body because I am actually exercising and getting the much needed movement that my body needs. So these are the two things which I find that I had to do. But most importantly, please allow the emotions to come out. Don't hold it in. I think it's very, very unhealthy if you were to hold the emotions in.
Mm. No, fantastic advice, and that's so important. I used to hear of it this way. Imagine your body is a Coke can, and all your emotions are inside, and it gets shaken by the challenges of life or the valley that
Yeah.
you're walking through. And what happens to a Coke can? The more you shake it, it's gonna explode. And so I
Yes.
want to encourage you as well, listening today, take Ernest's advice and let your emotions come out in a healthy way, in a safe
Yes.
place, because that is just so important. All right, Ernest, I have two more questions. I ask every guest these questions on the Valleys to Victory podcast to close out our conversation. And so take your time with these and answer them in whatever way you feel to. But looking back
Sure.
now, how has
Mhm.
your greatest valley shaped the person that you've become today?
So I think the greatest value that I had, which I had just described in the podcast just now, allows me to want to help people because every one of us has pain. Every one of us has a valley. But the way that we get out of the valley is not to just stay in the valley. The way we get out of the valley is to move past the valley, to move beyond that valley. And I feel that the best way you can do it is to actually find someone who has gone through that. And find a mentor, find someone who has been through what you have been through, talk to that person and see how that person has used his circumstance or her circumstance to move beyond it, and ask yourself, is that something doable or not? And seek advice. Because I'm in a place right now where I've gone through a couple of valleys myself. And I am here in a position to help people go beyond their own valleys in whatever way possible. Whether are they not able to study because they're academically weak, or is it because they have financial difficulty and I want to improve in their financial abilities, their management abilities? I'm not here to talk about investments. That's not my kind of thing. I'm here to help them acquire the skills, the mindsets to know how to manage finance, or to learn how to utilize their frameworks, the things within school to build their leadership capabilities. And all these three things I have actually gone through myself. So that's what I hope. Find somebody.
Yeah, such good advice. Find someone in your world that's walked the path and can help lead you through your valley. That's so good. And then the second question, if someone
Yeah.
listening now feels like they're in their own valley today, what's one small step that they could take this week to begin moving toward their own victory?
So I think this is going to be an amalgamation between the two things that I've just spoke about. You got to find somebody, but before you actually find somebody, allow the raw emotions to just come out, because you cannot meet somebody without acknowledging that you are really upset about whatever valley it is you're going through right now. And I think having that emotion be released is going to be so healthy, because you're going to meet and hopefully you can find this person. And if you can't find, you have one right here, Jeremy. Reach out to him. I'm pretty sure that he is more than willing to listen to whatever valley that you're in, and to hopefully, number one, listen and give you advice. And I'm sure he's connected enough to help you in that. So these two things, allow the emotions to come out and find somebody. And if you don't have, we have Jeremy right here.
Thank you for the shameless plug, Ernest. I appreciate that. Now, before I let you go, can you tell our listeners where can they find you? Where can they learn more about you and what you're building at Levin Academy, and just anything you want to pass on to our viewers about what you do?
Sure, thank you so much. So first and foremost, I would love to give you a free gift for attending this, and I want to give it specifically to the financial pillar of my company, because I feel that finances happen to be one of the greatest hiccups or trips that people get into that causes them to actually fall through the cracks, or they're just not just suffering a lot. So financial maturity is something that my company does, and a free gift for you, especially parents, and this is specifically for parents, is to head over to my website www.levenacademy.com/maturity, and I'll be giving you a free checklist to actually see whether or not your child has a certain level of financial maturity, and this checklist will give you an idea which level they are in and some of the key steps to take. So that's my free gift number one. And the next one isn't a free gift, but if you would like to learn more about how to teach your own children how to gain some kind of financial maturity, I've written a book about 2 years ago, and this is it. It's Smart Money Start Young. And this book here gives you some of the tips to build that in your children. So there is an Amazon, it's sold on Amazon. So you can head over to Amazon and look for Smart Money Start Young, and it will just show up for sure.
Wonderful. We'll link all of that in our show notes, Ernest, so nobody has to go hunting for that link or try and take it down. We'll make sure that it's available to all of the listeners today. But Ernest,
Appreciate it.
thank you so much. Genuinely, thank you for trusting us with your story today.
And thank you so much for giving me this platform to inspire your audience.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Hey, if you're listening and something in this conversation landed for you, I want you to do one thing, just one. Take the smallest next step that you can think of. Not the whole journey, just the next step. And that's what this show is about. That's what it's always been about. And that's what it's always going to be about. So before you go, two quick favors. If this episode helped you even a little, hit follow or subscribe at wherever you're listening so you don't miss the next one. And if there's someone in your life who needs encouragement because they're going through a valley right now, send them this episode. You might be the reason that they take their next step. So until our next episode, keep moving forward, and I'll see you next time on the Valleys to Victory podcast. You've been listening to the Valleys to Victory podcast with Jeremy Greening. For practical tools, encouragement, and support to help you move from your valley to your victory, visit www.valleystoVictory.com. And remember, you don't have to stay stuck. Keep moving forward.